Evening. Welcome to the regular trustee meeting for Beavercreek Township. It is Monday, July 10th. It is 5:04, p.m. If y'all would like to stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an agenda. Are there any changes or corrections?
None from staff.
All right. Accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the July 10th, 2023 meeting as presented and to excuse Ms. Wallace from today.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $358,471.02 for the June 28th, 2023 payroll as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payment listing report in the amount of $368,035.57 for the warrants through July 6, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the June 26, 2023 regular trustee meeting as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes. All right. Thank you. This is the portion of our meeting where we accept speakers from the public. If you'd like to speak, you have 3 minutes. You can come on up to the podium and tell us what you think. Hi, good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I didn't know whether I was the only one or not. I'm Gussie Jones. I reside at 2340 El Cid Drive, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45431. And first, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me the time to speak. Second, I would like to thank Mr. Parks and his staff for the admirable job they do in the cemetery and for keeping it a beautiful and a peaceful place to visit. And third, I would like to thank Mr. Zahariev for all the time he spent listening to some of my criticisms, complaints, whatever you'd like to call them. I have 3 people buried in the cemetery, and I visit frequently. And over the past year, up until the 13th of June of this year, I had collected more than 50 flags that had been thrown in the trash. And my husband was retired Air Force. It breaks my heart to see them. I sent all those to the sheriff's burning ceremony on the 14th of July, and since then I have collected 12 more. I would like the township trustees to think about putting a receptacle that is marked next to the trash cans so that whoever is collecting them will put the flags there and they can be collected and retired the way they're supposed to be rather than thrown in the trash. And my other question is, I was led to believe that they were going to put cameras in the cemetery to prevent the stealing of flowers that has happened to my graves in the past, and I wondered where that stands.
Sure.
That's it.
Thank you.
You again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Or if I may.
Sure.
Thank you for being here this evening. 2 updates on that. Ironically, we have even been delivered a American flag retirement box just today to the Public Service Department. So that will be going in the cemetery as soon as we get scheduled, get a concrete pad poured. So you're absolutely right. We can hopefully deter anyone who's thinking they're helping, but by thinking they're helping, they're not retiring the American flag in the correct way. So we're certainly cognizant of that, and we certainly want to address that as soon as we can. So I'm happy to report that we're able to have that. In addition, we are going to be putting smaller containers at all of the fire stations, as well as the government center as well. So that way, if anyone wants to retire the American flag properly, they have avenues to do that, whether it be at a fire station, the government center, or at the cemetery itself. So we definitely appreciate you bringing that concern to us. In regards to the security cameras, I have had a couple of meetings with staff. We are working very diligently on that. We're making some headway. The vendor, there are some challenges, so to speak, but we're working through those. It's a work in progress. I understand there's no time like the present, and yesterday, in regards to what we can do to the cemetery, is always best. But we're very cognizant of that matter. I know our sergeant of our Beavercreek Township substation for the sheriff's office is logging the calls for when they do extra patrols. We're trying to do every reasonable method to deter that. And certainly, if there's a resident or anyone who passes by there who sees something, let us know or let the sheriff know, so that way we can address that as soon as possible. But we're certainly moving towards that direction of having not only security cameras, but additional to the American flag retirement box as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the update as well.
One other, just quick comment on that. Thank you for for bringing that to our attention, and I'm glad we've at least resolved part of it for you already. But as far as Mr. Rushing, just one comment, and this was a comment that was made to me about filming or videoing in the cemetery, was to make sure that we are respectful of people's privacy. That a lot of people that go there, they're going there either as a celebration of life or they're mourning, and to make sure that we are essentially protecting that video so that it doesn't get in the wrong hands. And the suggestion was to maybe monitor the points of entry to the cemetery, but not the graves themselves. So just from it was an individual who brought it up who has a child buried there, and they said they would not want to be videotaped kneeling at their child's grave. So just something to think about.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Anything else?
I'm Ann Stalter, 2572 Rolling Meadows in the township. The reason I have two things I want to bring up. One, I was headed west on Fairgrounds Road yesterday, right where the reserve is, and I watched it. There was a turtle that was walking toward I'll call it the McIntyre side was walking from the reserve over, and I watched a vehicle, I think it's 50 mile an hour there, just squash the turtle. I wouldn't know a yellow slider from a spotted turtle, but I do know that we care about those spotted turtles, and they're considered our protected species here in the township. So I was wondering if there was a way that perhaps some signage could go up along that area, just because the turtles are moving this time of year. And the second thing is, just being a woman of my word, I came last meeting as a representative of the zoning commission, just to show good faith that we're being collaborative. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. There is no old business. There is some new business, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Rushing for that.
Yes, thank you, Board. First, we do have a request from the Beavercreek Wetlands Association. I'm happy that we do have a representative here this afternoon, the Executive Director of the Wetlands Association, Jackie Mayer. So I'll turn it over to her so she may present with the request for the Board this evening.
Jackie Mayer, do you need my address?
Sure.
2840 Ashcroft Drive, Apartment 8 in Beavercreek, 45431. It's all right, I'm gonna hand out some maps so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You got that one?
Thank you so much.
Sorry I didn't prepare a PowerPoint. So, what you'll see on this map is hopefully to acquaint you with what we're talking about. You'll see the Nolan Reserve down in the lower right-hand corner. That was the property we purchased from Mark McIntyre a couple years ago that we are now calling the Dave Nolan Wetland Reserve. The proposed acquisition land is the yellow land that is adjacent to the property. That Greene County Parks and Trails land is actually an easement that they have on the property. Our hope is that, well, actually we are in the midst of writing a Clean Ohio grant to fund the purchase of the property from Mitch Kostler. And obviously, we want to make improvements to it. There are wetlands on that property as we speak that are being degraded and that we will restore. And then also, there's a prairie there that we'd like to restore as well. The grant is due on June 30th, so we certainly hope that the township would consider a resolution of support to expand the work we're already doing for the Spotted Turtle Trail. And the great thing about this particular parcel is that it's adjacent to land that we already own. So the Nolan Reserve is a little over 58 acres. The property that we are purchasing will add an additional 23 acres that will be directly adjacent to that. We're going to put in a paved driveway, a paved parking lot. Hopefully, I should also mention that we're having a ribbon cutting for the Nolan Reserve on Friday, August 25th at 10 o'clock. You'll receive your invitations, but by all means, we hope you'll be there. And you'll get some ideas of what we're really looking to do and to make this property accessible for the whole community and the Dayton area.
Thank you.
Question for you. So, public access will be to both Nolan and the proposed?
That is correct. There will be surface trails that we're going to put in. The great thing about having the paved driveway and the paved parking lot, it also creates a paved entry to the boardwalk that has already been constructed at Nolan Reserve, and that boardwalk is ADA compliant.
So where will that access point come in from to the Nolan Reserve piece of it?
If you see or I know this is a really hard way to do it.
Is it off
So the
Kingsway?
dotted line is the driveway.
Okay,
The little rectangle is the parking lot, and then you see the black line that attaches to Nolan Reserve. That's going to be the walkway that will attach the parking lot to Nolan Reserve.
okay, so parking will be on the proposed piece?
That is correct.
Okay, and then there'll be a connector to the Nolan, so there won't actually be a parking lot at Nolan.
No, it'll
Per se.
actually be on the new property.
Okay, that actually, you were here the evening that, yeah, okay. I was just heading down that path to make sure that we weren't creating another problem. Okay.
Certainly, I hope not.
It's impossible to please the whole world and your mother-in-law at the same time.
That's very true. Anything else? Any other questions?
No, sounds great. Good luck. Hopefully that works out with Mitch.
We certainly hope so.
What is the plan? I haven't been, I was back there a few years ago with Mitch, as far as all the dead trees that are standing in the wetland.
What do you think it'll take?
Which
Is there
wetland are you
not-
referring to?
I think it's in your GCPT land section.
That is land we don't own. That easement is owned by Greene County Parks and Trails. So,
Okay.
I would certainly think,
Just
from
looks
what
like
I understand at this point in time, they truly do not have great access to that easement.
Right.
This will also, because they're a big partner of ours, it'll enable them to maintain that property as well. And if there are any safety issues, they'll deal with it.
Okay. And have you engaged the folks that live in that, I can't think of the name of that development there.
Hickory Hollow.
Hickory Hollow. Have you engaged with those residents?
Depends on what you mean by engaged.
Are
we
they,
are going to
are they
be,
supportive of public access coming through their neighborhood?
yes and no. They are all going to be invited to the ribbon cutting. We know there's some people, this is a big change for them. This has
Sure.
been agricultural land for a number of years. So Mr. Kostler's been generous enough to let us have access to the property in order to construct the mile of boardwalk that now exists in Nolan Reserve. I don't know if they've ever thought, oh my God, is this going to be a permanent solution? What are they going to do? This also gives us the opportunity to reach out to all of those neighbors and let them know we want to be good neighbors. We want them to enjoy the access that's right by their doorsteps. I've met a lot of the neighbors while I've been out there walking, and the people I've come in contact with, they're very happy. I've also heard about some people who are not terribly happy.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think forward as far as just issues to head them off before. It's always better to try to define and solve a problem
Oh,
before
I
it happens.
appreciate any help in that direction.
But as far as delineating between the park and the residential piece, are you using fencing or are you using landscaping or?
To be very honest, I don't think we've gotten that far.
Okay.
So if you go out to South Deer Hollow Trail, it ends in a stub street. And there's kind of like a concrete driveway, and then you're just on the property.
Right.
So obviously there will be signage. Beyond that, we haven't gotten that far in the planning.
Okay. Okay. And obviously the same concern would, to a lesser extent, be with Nolan and whatever future development plus the 10-acre house that's already there. As far as any kind of delineation of where does one property end and the other one begin? Just to
We
keep
will have to have some kind of
hikers,
marking
Yeah, just keep
that
hikers.
exists that shows the boundaries for some of the neighbors.
Sure.
And obviously we will take care of that and make sure that it's well marked.
Okay. Just obviously something, if they haven't thought through that, just to carefully try to plan that.
No,
So,
I appreciate that.
Okay. And so were you looking for support in the form of a letter or in the form
Yes,
of money?
please.
Okay.
I would be more than happy to take your money because we're going to need, the Clean Ohio Fund will pay for 75% of this project. At this point, we are estimating the cost to be about $700,000 between the purchase of the property and the restoration and improvement work that needs to be done. As I said, we need a match of 25%. We are pursuing some grants and other funding. If Beavercreek Township would like to put some money in that pot, I will be more than happy to accept it. But the resolution is what I need
Okay.
first.
Okay. And then is that going to be in a conservation easement or is it already in a conservation easement? Well, it's not now. I know he was,
The new property is not,
right.
so that will come once we close on the property.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. There is a sample resolution on page 9, also in front of you. It can be passed as presented.
Bear with me. I was listening to her and looking at the sheriff report, my problem. Sorry. All right. I'll make a motion to approve a resolution to support Beavercreek Wetlands Association grant application as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Board. Moving along to our monthly updates. First is our substation for our sheriff's office. Sergeant Kessel is here to answer any questions that you may have.
How's the canine doing?
Board K-9's doing well. Deputy Kraft, he has 4 or 5 reports now, where he's not only tracked down fugitives running from traffic stops, but also he's able to seize drugs. So he's doing well. Happy. So
Good. Okay.
has all the equipment and support he needs. So
What is the arrangement? And I'm trying to recall. I don't believe it's in our contract because we didn't have a K-9 unit at the time. As far as if the K-9 is used outside of Beavercreek Township, so somewhere else in the county.
it's my understanding that we adopted the policy with the rest of the county, where we will be good neighbors and we will send Maverick and Luke.
Mutual
out.
aid type.
Mutual aid, right.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then as far as anything else, points of awareness or anything else we need to be thinking of, or any concerns or spikes that you saw in our incident report comparing year over year?
No,
Anything
not
that-
that I'm seeing.
Nothing extraordinary.
No, everything's pretty level right now. Everything, nothing of interest.
Okay.
I did want to point out or mention that we did have the Rotary Park detail, and it went well. We had township deputies out there along with one special and a full-time deputy downtown. We work famously with the PD for security, so I just want to pass that along.
Great,
Went
thank
really
you.
well.
One other question, and I don't know if it's really your question, but it actually would relate to you, to the sheriff department and any law enforcement. So today, actually, I was coming eastbound on 35, and fire engine was coming down Orchard Lane South towards 35, lights on, and it crossed the median, but it had to pause in the middle of the highway right at where the super street, essentially the concrete barriers are right in the middle there. Instead of taking the loop, it paused because it was crossing over towards the gas station and Circle K. And so, but I thought we had ordered the transponders to be able to shut those lights down. I thought that was part of the highway, the super street project, but the lights were green and they were waiting for cars to recognize lights and sirens so they could cross. So it's just, I don't know if you're equipped with those or not.
My experience so far running code through there, those are not active, so I'm not sure what the
Okay.
planning was. Or what
I don't recall that conversation, but we can certainly look into it.
Yeah, back when, there were two things that we said we wanted as a township for that Super Street project for our contribution, which I believe we're current on our payments on it. And one was essentially the sensor to pick up a rogue vehicle that was coming at a speed that would be faster than they could stop to make the light. And the second thing was the transponders to be able to shut those lights down for these guys as well as fire. But it was obvious today that truck was paused right in the middle, waiting, not for the light to change, but for traffic to recognize it. Because I went past not knowing if he was going to make the loop or not. It looked like he was going to make the turn and do the loop. And he went straight across.
Sure, we can certainly
Okay.
look into it.
All right. It would be for your guys' benefit as well.
wonderful thing.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Move on to Human Resources. Ms. Gutherson is on Teams to answer any questions if you have any.
I had no questions on the report. The dental insurance, we've wrapped that up, correct? We're locked
Correct.
in for we're in sync with our health insurance.
Correct.
essentially.
We have an 18th month renewal, so it'll go through this calendar year, next calendar year. So when we renew for the 25 policy year, all the insurances will be on a calendar year renewal.
Okay. Otherwise, I had nothing, no questions. Thank you.
I had nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too.
You too.
Thank you, board. Next, we move on to community development and risk. We do have an action item. That's to schedule a zoning case from the recent zoning commission hearing. Our administrator of the community development and risk department is here, Mr. Grogan, to present that.
Zoning Commission made a recommendation on July 6th for case number 834. And staff is requesting for the trustees to schedule a hearing to consider the recommendation at the earliest opportunity with all the board members here. And we have a sample motion, and that date would be August the 28th at 6 p.m. rather than
What was the
6.
recommendation of the commission?
Recommendation was to deny.
Okay. And that was, did we change the plan and resubmit it to them, or was it a carryover of I thought we denied it. I thought it was denied the first time. Was it denied twice?
The first time what happened is they voted, the motion was to approve and it was voted down.
Okay.
And so, or the motion was recommendation to approve and it was voted down. So then there was really no recommendation. So this was just to go back, make a recommendation,
Okay.
essentially, effectively what their intention was.
Make a motion you could vote on, essentially. Okay. Okay.
So August 28th, we have all the board members back, and it'd be at 6 p.m. rather than 6:30.
And so the reason you're bringing it back to the trustees is to appeal to the trustees from a standpoint of, or just because we're required to? I'm trying to remember how this works.
Yes, you would be the
Either way, we're
actual
required to.
decision maker, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll make a motion to Schedule a hearing to consider zoning commission recommendation case 834. On which day?
August 28th
On August 28th,
at 6
begin
p.m.
at 6 p.m.
Second, with discussion, is there a way to have a, like a work session with the zoning board? I mean, to find what they're, why they're turning it down? Like discussion with everyone, or is that not
With that hearing,
allowed?
can we invite them to that hearing?
We certainly can.
Sure.
Okay.
It's a public
And then,
meeting,
yeah,
absolutely.
because we would have a staff report, and then we would have open it up for public comment. And
And
at that point, we could
can
have
make-
zoning commission. Okay. Not
So I
to,
think the forum itself will lend itself to some public input and dialogue. As any zoning case, there's a public hearing portion, so we certainly will invite those that want to attend. And that way you can hear the remarks in
Okay.
that fashion, be more procedural.
and Ms. Frick, we're not violating anything by having, if there were zoning commission members that were to attend that and to speak, would they be speaking on as a resident or speaking on behalf as a zoning commission member?
Well, they're speaking as residents, but they are also, I think they're concerned whether they're residents or zoning commission are gonna be the same members.
Right, but are they violating anything in their, as a member of the zoning commission by speaking?
No,
Okay.
no, because those are
I didn't wanna
meetings that
set
are
anybody-
open to the public
right,
as
I didn't
well.
want to set anybody up.
Yeah, no.
I went to a Centerville hearing where a councilman stepped down, said he could recuse himself, but he reserved the right to complain as a citizen, and then he spoke against what I was going for. It was not pleasant.
But then he was on that's because I think he was on the
He was
the
sitting
board
out-
that was deciding.
Yeah.
Yes. What they've done is made a recommendation.
Okay. Okay.
Any other discussion? Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. One other thing on the action item then, or information, you met Brandy, so thank you for allowing us to fulfill that position. The other thing was some public ed stuff that happened last month in June. We had 2 excellent days with the Fire Prevention Bureau in Safety Town. That was very fun. Touched 160 kids total, I think. Yeah, so it was a great time. We appreciated the police department's invitation to that every year. And then the other thing, even though it's technically in July, fireworks went off okay on the 4th. I was not around, but had a good report of everyone was safe and everything went off well. So that's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Rushing, I want to verify, you said August 28th, correct?
Correct,
So it'll overlap with our regular meeting that day?
correct.
Okay, all right. And Mr. Grosjean or Max, if you can maybe circulate the latest version of that plan as soon as possible, just so we can have time. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Move on to IT. The report's on page 37. Happy to answer any questions, or at the very least, pass them on to the appropriate contacts for follow-up answers.
Are there any open action items for the balance of the year as far as projects, or are we in cruise control?
There's always going to be small projects, whether it be staff initiated, reviewing different softwares as a service. We did have a review of a new cemetery software that we'll be presenting to the board once the trustees are at full quorum. But in terms of other lingering projects, not to my knowledge, we are moving forward. They've done a lot of work recently with some server patching. We did have a planned outage of a network a few weeks ago now that went smooth. So other than that, we are moving forward quite well.
Is Greene County or Beavercreek had any, or is there any chatter or discussion as far as the AI-based dispatching?
Not to my knowledge, although obviously that's a hot topic. There has been some peripheral discussion about dispatching in its entirety. What does that future look like in Greene County? And when I say Greene County, I mean geographically Greene County. As you know, we have various dispatch centers within Greene County itself. That topic has been somewhat tabled as a pressing issue. As the board is aware, our CAD system, or the computer aided dispatching, that has been the primary discussion with PSISN. PSISN board did officially approve going to the cloud for their next service. The city of Xenia is no longer going to be providing the space or the staff to manage the CAD. It's going to go to a software as a service with Tyler Technologies, which is the software company that provides the system New World to begin with. I can imagine once that rollout begins, it's going to take a lot of effort amongst PSISN and the various stakeholders. But then from that, there'll probably be dovetail conversations about dispatching as a whole. But not to my knowledge, I have not heard, unless there's other chatter that I'm not privy to.
And yeah, it was an article I read as far as the integration of artificial intelligence into dispatching and ultimately, more higher consistency. And so just curious. Okay.
And there's certainly positive arguments about automation. At the very minimum, as the board is fully aware, we implement the text-to-speech for dispatching. So there is some automation already built in that has been very well received, but full AI, not to that point yet, at least I'm aware of. Thank you, board. We will move on to our finance department. Mrs. Molden is on vacation right now, but I'll be happy to answer any questions or at least pass them on.
I had none.
I had none. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to our public service department. Mr. Parks.
Good evening, board. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just as a kind of an update, the Factory Road project is going along fine. There's now a great big concrete box at the end of the tunnel. And as you notice, as you're driving down Factory, out front is getting drier as it goes. So hopefully they were checking on the valves. They're hoping to go a little sooner than the end of August, but it's moving along well. So
Great.
Just to follow up on the library project as far as the turn lane testing that you're doing there.
they're in. We've taken out the rear island and put in the, I guess, directional pieces. Haven't heard any complaints. We've been up there. It seems to be working well, but we're gonna give it a little more time.
Good. Yeah, so one question obviously is, can you snowplow around it? So, how does that
You
work?
can get a snowplow around it.
We'll find out.
Right, because it becomes works great this summer, so, but,
Again, it's not an engineered
right,
structure at this point, so it's township engineered.
sure.
So again, once we get.
That might be better.
So once if this plan goes through and we decide this is what we want to do, obviously, then I believe our engineer
Sure,
would then take the mathematics into that to
Yeah.
allow for that space.
yep, good. Okay. And then as far as the drainage swale that is along Trebine Road that goes from Overbrook to Dayton Xenia, is that the counties or is that
That
the
is the
townships?
counties.
Okay, they need to mow. Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. We will move on to our fire department. Chief Vanabos is on by teams. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer any questions or provide any points of awareness for the board.
Good evening, board. Sorry about the mute issue a few minutes ago. Apparently I'm having some technology issues right now.
Artificial intelligence.
Oh man, we've already been down that path once. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So as Fire Marshal Grogan pointed out, we had the fireworks. It was a very successful event from our perspective. It's always a big operation to get that large a show safely shot with the crowds where they're at, and it's a good cooperation between Beavercreek City Police, Greene County Sheriff, ourselves, and obviously Community Development and Risk making that happen. So I want to thank him and his staff for getting out there and getting it done. A couple of really nice photos. I have errantly miscredited one of those. One photo is from Captain Brewer, and the other is from firefighter Joe Mahaffey. They were both on shift that evening, so kind of a nice perspective and some nice shots that evening.
Nice.
I also did want to recognize firefighters Joe Mahaffey, Josh Smith, and Dustin Richardson. They all completed confined space technician training at the Ohio Fire Academy. That's one of our technical rescue disciplines that we don't use often. So having folks that are trained and maintain that training level to become operational if necessary is a critical component. Most places around here, most contractors around here and businesses that have a confined space entry will put us down as their rescue team, whether we're ready to be that or not. And so over the past several years, we've been ramping up that capability. And those three guys attending that class, getting that certification is part of that. So I just wanted to recognize them as well.
Thank you. Chief, I don't know if you were on when we had the discussion earlier or if you were dialed in as far as what I witnessed today as far as an engine coming down Orchard crossing 35 to get over to the
Yes, sir.
fuel station. So is that still in the plans, as far as the transponder, or was it dropped from the budget, or?
I have not heard anything since the initial negotiations, so
Okay.
I probably have to defer to Mr. Zaharia. I think he had the most contact with the Department of Transportation.
Okay.
Unfortunately for him, I know it was a request, and we had also requested the rolled curbs. We got about half of a rolled curb. We can go up and over them if necessary, but I think the crews have taken to going around them to preserve the suspension on the apparatus. But yeah, there's been no movement whatsoever on active control of the signals, to my knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, because they went straight across today, and it looked terrifying. So.
Yeah, that's always a dicey proposition crossing 35.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look into that further and keep going. So I had no other questions on your report. The format was easy to read. So.
Yes, sir. The report there, just as a kind of point of interest, you'll no longer be seeing those continuum reports. We have effectively decided that was not the way to present information. This report is the first one that pulls information from the old firehouse system and puts it together with the new image trends. So we are actively pulling information from both of those. And you'll see more development along this line, as well as as that front section in the reports moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. That's all I have this evening.
All right.
There's a resolution here on the Ohio Ambulance Transportation Program.
I think that's-
Yes, that'd be under fiscal office.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Frick, anything today?
Nothing today.
Thank you. And Mr. Zaharia.
Thank you, Board. Under page 50 in your packet is to establish a fund for the, what was just mentioned, the ambulance transportation program. We were already going to set up the fund in preparation of receiving a grant. Good news is we did receive the grant today. $20,000 and some change will be put into the fund. And it will not only cover the bonuses, but our portion of the police and fire pension, so the 24% that we would have to pay. So 100% will be coming out of this fund. You can pass it as presented.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve a resolution establishing Ohio Ambulance Transportation Program Fund 2908 and to certify additional revenue to the official certificate of available resources and to authorize supplemental appropriations for Fund 2908 Ohio Ambulance Transportation Program as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
A couple more items, Board, just to let you know that we had some money becoming available, short-term CD, the commercial paper short-term. We reinvested about $250,000 in a CD for 2 years at 5%, which is significantly higher than what we were seeing before. We had $675,000 come mature on Friday, this past Friday. We were getting about 2.38% 9 months ago on that commercial paper. We reinvested the money for 9 months at 5.10.
Great. Thank you.
That's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. All right, meetings, Miami Valley Regional Planning, Ms. Wallace is absent, so we'll move on to TAC.
I can speak to that. There was no TAC meeting.
Thank you. Regional Planning,
Nothing to report.
Health Department, our meeting was last Thursday, and there's nothing for Beavercreek Township. School Superintendent,
No report.
Wright Patterson Restoration Advisory Board,
No report.
Township Association, again, Ms. Wallace is not here tonight, and Investment Oversight.
Nothing to report.
Okay, that's it. Anything else to come before the board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.